The U.S. Navy spared no expense. Only the planet's most powerful energy source would do. Like all Nitmtz-class carriers, the USS Ronald Reagan is powered by 2 nuclear reactors embedded deep in the ship. The reactors are highly classified and heavily protected.
It's built to go into war, so it's surrounded by lots of steel and then some more steel. It's much more rugged than a commercial shore-based power plant.
Inside the reactors, uranium atoms split apart in a controlled nuclear fission reaction that releases energy to heat pressurized water. The extremely hot liquid then passes through a heat exchanger, producing steam to drive a turbine, spinning a generator to produce the ship's power. The high-pressure steam also runs the catapults, and it powers giant turbines deep inside the ship, turning massive shafts and rotating 4 enormous bronze propellers. At the back of the ship, 2 huge rudders weighing 50 tons each handle the steering.
We have 2 reactors on board the ship. 1 reactor can pretty much do all the things we need to do on board this ship. So having 2 reactors provides us some redundancy and some flexibility.
The Reagan's reactors and turbines also provide electricity to power the entire ship, from radar screens to the hangar bay doors to the aircraft elevators. Altogether, it's about 64 megawatts, enough electricity to supply a city of 100,000. And the reactors are designed to run for more than 20 years before replacing their uranium fuel. Yet keeping the deployed ship continually supplied with food, fuel, parts, and other critical items is another matter. This responsibility falls on the shoulders of the supply department.
Logistics is really the thing that makes our Navy really important and give us the ability to go over the horizon. I have $475 million worth of inventory of repair parts, and not only for the ship as well, and that includes pens and pencils, and includes radars.
About once a week, the crew performs a connected replenishment, or CONREP, bringing aboard new supplies, fuel, and fresh food from a Navy supply ship.
Yes, sir. We can run our 2 to our 5. It'll just fairly a little bit aft, but we can still run it, Captain.
To make the transfer, both the carrier and the supply ship must maintain a constant speed and an exact distance of 160 feet apart for 3 to 6 hours. Commander Eric Patton is the Reagan's navigator.
We drive the ship more precisely than I drive my truck. It's tiring. Because you're focused for so long, there's some fatigue that does set in.
The carrier's crew begins the operation by shooting 4 pairs of lines across the 160-foot gap.
We shoot shot lines, which are just very small, thin lines of a nylon cord, and then we pull those cords over with bigger line, and then bigger line, and finally we pull over the big heavy wire.
Two CONREP stations are set up to handle fuel hoses, pumping up to 3.5 million gallons of JP5 jet fuel into the carrier's fuel tanks. 2 other stations handle food and supply pallets, using a pulley-operated gull wing crane to deliver them right into the Reagan's hangar bay.
I'll bring upwards of 700 pallets sometimes worth of food and material.
The CONREP operation is inherently risky. If the ships stray off course, the wires could stretch and snap, recoiling like a deadly whip. Any loose clothing could catch on a wire and drag a crew member overboard.
And you did a good job whipping it, but you gotta give it more. Whip it, pull it towards you.
Understand Lake Champlain.
Deck Department Head, Lieutenant Commander Cleet Strasbaugh, and his safety crew watch the operation closely.
All the guys in the white hats are safety officers. Their primary job is to make sure that no safety violations take place. People don't get too close to the deck edge, temporary lifeline. They're not wearing any rings, watches, or any jewelry.
Finally, the supplies are on board and the conreps complete. Managing supplies is tough, but managing sailors is even tougher. It takes planning and hard work to keep daily life running smoothly on a ship this big.
We are a floating city. We have our own fire department. We have our own hospital. We have our own security, our own police department. So when you think of all those things and how much it would cost a city to run that type of an operation, that's really equivalent to how we are.
Feeding all of these hard-working sailors is Chef Monica Arias' top priority.
It's extremely important for the crew to be well fed. They're working 16, 20 hours a day up on the fight deck, so they're going to want to come down and have some good food. And food keeps you happy. You run on your stomach. And if you're hungry, how are you going to work?
23 hours a day, every day, the Reagan's 5 mess halls serve up 18,000 meals. From 11 dry storage rooms and 6 cold storage units, the Reagan's cooks create a tremendous feast. Daily, the Reagan bakes and serves 300 loaves of bread, nearly 2,500 fresh eggs, and more than 7,000 pounds of meat. When this crew cooks up a feast, they do it big. From hot dogs to fried shrimp to steak.
People's favorites would probably be like spaghetti. Spaghetti night is crazy. Or obviously steak. We have lines up to the hangar bay for steak, waiting forever just for a steak. So it's definitely our favorites.
It's quite obvious we're hungry.
Preparing lots of food also creates lots of trash, and there's no room to keep it all on board. But technology is on hand to help. In this machine, plastic is shredded, then melted and pressurized into giant discs called hockey pucks. They're stored in the hangar bay and then recycled on land.
We make about 100 of these in this plant alone every day. That's about 600 or 700 bags of plastic. That's a lot. Get a bag of cans. Cans are already in there.
Sailors drink 600,000 cans of soda every year. The metal is shredded to bits, then sent overboard.
Everything that we put over the side is biodegradable. Saltwater just eats it up.
Life on the USS Ronald Reagan is dominated by one thing: the ship's layout. Moving around inside this multi-level maze is complicated, confusing, and often exhausting. Cross-sectional maps of the ship are posted in passageways to help the crew find their way around. But if you stop paying attention to where you're walking, you risk injury. Watertight doorways and strengthening frames line the passageways through the ship. Each of them has a circular opening that's smaller than the passageway itself. Duck, or you'll smack your skull. And make sure to step high, or the hatch's bottom lip, or knee knocker, will smash your shins. It's the reality of life on this supercarrier. Coming up, an inside look at the F-18 Hornet's